Hey y'all, today I'll be breaking down two super cheap mid-wipe weapon builds that I think are pretty cool and perform pretty well. So the main criteria I chose for these builds are weapon platforms which are able to perform against level 3 to 4 armor, are relatively cheap, and don't have insane recoil. So for this video I've picked the OP-sks and the RFB. I'll be breaking down a few variations of each build, their prices, and of course which ammo you should be using. So let's get right into it. Starting with the trusty OP-sks, which tends to either be loved or hated. I find that with the buff of PS ammunition this wipe, this thing is still incredibly viable so far. Let's start with the first variation of our SKS, geared more towards longer range engagements. So starting with the stock gun, let's replace the 10 round internal mag with the 20 round SKS mag, then add the PSO onto our dovetail mount. It's also worth noting that there are multiple PSO scopes, all with slightly different reticles, however they all cost almost the same. Then lastly, the hexagon SKS suppressor, if you want a suppressed version of course. This comes out to a cost of around 85,000 rubles, or 60,000 with no suppressor. On the flea market however, the SKS does tend not to be available above 60 durability, at least when sold by players, which will generally bring the price to around 100,000 rubles or 75,000 unsuppressed if you do want one with full durability. Alternatively, a favorite SKS build of mine is using the OKP7 sight, removing the hexagon suppressor, and of course keeping the 20 round magazine, which generally comes out to around 55,000 rubles, and is a great close to medium range build, and really does smack people down when you hit them. Now we should probably talk about ammunition quickly, and since the SKS uses 7.62 by 39 ammo, the only rounds I currently believe are viable are PS or BP ammunition. PS has 57 damage and 35 pen, whereas BP has 47 pen and 58 damage. Now obviously BP is definitely the better option, however it is very hard to come by, especially if you're not crafting it regularly. If you do have access to BP ammo, I definitely would say that you should use that. However, PS is a very strong contender right now, even against level 4 armor, thanks to its buff this wipe. Now moving along to our second build, the RFB. The RFB has been a very strong weapon since its introduction a few patches ago, and I still believe that it dominates pretty well in the mid game. From stock, it's very easily modded, and you can load it up with pretty strong ammo and get right into destroying players. But let's get into the modding. Beginning with the foregrip, I'll attach an RK5 onto it. Then attach the BMD adapter, the BMD muzzle brake, and the Landtac Draken muzzle brake. Finally, you can add your choice of optic, and for this build I'd recommend a close range sight. Now this close to mid-range build costs around 110,000 rubles, which while not incredibly cheap, it does still pack a great punch. If longer range engagements are more your style, then let's replace the adapter with the Daniel Defense muzzle brake, then add the Wave QD suppressor onto that. For this build I'd recommend changing the sight to a long range optic, however I won't be including that in the price. Without the sight, this build costs around 115k rubles. When it comes to the ammo you should be using in the RFB, you have a few options. TCWSP ammo has 34 pen and 67 damage, which while decent is right below the cusp of penning level 4 super reliably. The typical choice is M80 ball ammo, which has 41 pen and 80 damage. However, unfortunately that was moved to Peacekeeper level 3 at the beginning of this wipe, which sadly makes it pretty hard to access for many players. Personally, I would obviously still recommend using M80 if you can access it, however the TCW ammo does still perform very similarly to the 7.62 PS ammo and is still a decent choice. Overall, I'd say that either round will do the trick. When deciding between the RFB and the SKS, it is definitely a challenge to say which is better, as people always argue for one or the other. Personally, in my opinion, I prefer to use the SKS, as in my experiences it does feel a little bit more snappy compared to the RFB. However, I definitely see why people use the RFB, as its round and damage of that round is really high. Overall, if you have the money to spare, I would say that you should just try and experiment, see what you like, see if you like long range, close range, whatever it might be. One thing that the SKS definitely has going for it is that it's cheaper than the RFB generally, but I do find that the RFB tends to be better at longer ranges just due to the muzzle velocity of the rounds that you're shooting. So that was two cheap mid-wipe weapon breakdowns. Try saying that 3 times fast. Do you have a favorite budget weapon? Let me know in the comments. And hey, while you're down there, why not subscribe if you enjoyed the video? Thanks for watching, and have a great day.